Ambassador Eisenstadt, Mayor Reed, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rob Wildstein. I am president of the Ahavath Achim Synagogue. On behalf of our congregation, it is my pleasure to welcome all of you this evening. We as a synagogue and as a community have been blessed over the many years to be endowed with the gift from the Eisenstadt family to host the Fran Eisenstadt and Eisenstadt Family Annual Lecture. This lecture, through the past 29 years, have brought us guests of national and international acclaim, and tonight is no exception. Ambassador Eisenstadt, on behalf of the congregation and the community, I want to thank you for your generosity and for your ability to give us these memorable evenings and this type of memorable event. So thank you very much. I want to thank the chairs of this evening's event, Sandy and Davis Abrams, as well as our incredible staff led by our executive director, Manuel Mesa, as well as all of our volunteers who have helped make this evening possible. So if you've ever had a situation where your cell phone went off in a place of public worship, or worse yet, had Siri say, "I didn't get that, Rob," probably now is a good time to silence your cell phones and probably even turn them off. So I thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite Mindy Margolis and Sheer Harmony, who will lead us in our national anthem, followed by Hakeem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched
much for joining us here this evening. I know that you've just taken your seats, but in just a moment I'm going to ask you to rise. Let me tell you why. We've gathered here, of course, this evening for a wonderful evening. Time to listen to our esteemed guest speaker share perspectives on different issues taking place within our world. But we also gather here this evening against the backdrop of the world in which you and I live. And if we follow the news, and it doesn't take much to follow that news, we hear so much about gun violence within our society throughout this country. And so I want to ask you to rise at this time for just a moment. We will take a moment of silence. Remember the victims of gun violence. First and foremost, perhaps the police officers who were killed in Dallas, Baton Rouge, and all innocent individuals who are the victims of gun violence. Let us reflect on this issue, and let us take a moment to honor their memories. Thank you. Please be seated. It seems that disagreement runs rampant throughout the world. What I just actually mentioned is one possible response, a terrible response, of course, to disagreement. But even in what should be polite society, not only is it disagreement that runs rampant, but in fact now the rhetoric becomes harsher and harsher all the time, to the point that it also at times demeans individuals by virtue of the words that are shot in their direction. After our program here this evening, go home. Turn on your televisions. Maybe you shouldn't actually, it might spoil a wonderful evening. But if you choose to do so, if you turn on your television, you're going to hear what I'm talking about right now. You're going to hear the harsh rhetoric. You may hear demeaning words. And let's be honest, if you turn on your televisions next week, you may be just as likely to hear similar terms. It's understandable that political parties, individuals who are adherents of those parties, have differences among them. They have different philosophies, perhaps different ideologies. They look at things in different ways, and therefore, it only makes sense, as the reality reflects, that they reach different conclusions with regard to whatever the issues may be. We'll have the opportunity again to hear from our esteemed guest, as I'm sure he will share perspectives on issues with us this evening. But in the end, are we really condemned to express difference in these harsh ways, in ways that sometimes demean individuals? 2,000 years ago, there was a couple of rabbis, a pair of rabbis and their followers, who shared a very different kind of paradigm. A number of you here this evening know these rabbis by name, Hillel and Shammai. And so they disagreed oftentimes in their perspectives on what was the nature of the law. But in one particular instance, they've been disagreeing on this point of Jewish law for 3 years. Until finally, a bat called a heavenly voice emerged from the heavens and announced that these, the words of Hillel and Hillel's followers, and those, the words of Shammai and Shammai's followers, are the words of the living God. It's incredible when you think about it. They disagreed with each other. They argued vehemently. But here was a statement that the words were both divine somehow in nature. What did that mean to say and share with us? After all, these were the words of Hillel and Shammai, not of God. Perhaps the message is it was about the way in which these individuals and their followers were able to speak to each other. Despite their vehement disagreement with each other, they were able to speak with each other. They were able to speak with each other in a civil fashion, in a very, very respectful manner. Now, that, by the way, is not the end of the story. Because right after that heavenly voice shared the nature of their words, it returned and said, but when it comes to this particular matter of Jewish law, it follows the followers of Hillel. So in fact, at the end, there was a very specific outcome. Well, friends, I don't imagine that there's going to be a bat kol, a heavenly voice that's going to come out of the heavens and speak to any of us here. And in case anybody has that experience, we're going to be watching you very carefully. And yet, there's such a significant lesson that is shared with us by that particular story within the Talmud. Go ahead. Disagree. Express that disagreement in strong fashion. But in the end, when you can do so in a manner that reflects your respect for the other party, then in that sense, you are giving expression to the divine within. That, ladies and gentlemen, is our task whenever necessary. When we have disagreements, when we perhaps argue in strong fashion, it is to act in the manner that is reflected among the followers of Hillel and Shammai. We ought to expect nothing less of those who would lead us in this country. And as for the outcome, the direction, well, when we can do what I just said, then that direction will come out of the nature of our conversations and ultimately out of our considerations and deliberations. V'chein yehi ratzon, so may it be. Now, a slight change in our program, I'm going to ask, please, for our esteemed mayor, Christine Reed, to please come forward and to share words with us.
Good evening. I tell you, it feels good to see some friendly faces. I want to thank Rabbi Sandler for having me here today. And on behalf of the city of Atlanta, I want all of you to know that I'm delighted to welcome Mayor Michael Bloomberg back to our city. We're grateful to have him here, if only for a short time. I also want to recognize the leadership of your rabbi, and of course, the extraordinary contributions that Avad Akim makes in the city of Atlanta every single day. And to say thank you tonight for hosting the Eisenstadt lecture. Please give the Eisenstadt family a warm round of applause. This lecture series has an extraordinary record of bringing esteemed thought leaders to the city of Atlanta, presidents, vice presidents, Supreme Court justices, secretaries of state, and tonight is no different. I want to personally congratulate and thank Stuart Eisenstadt for enabling these critical conversations at a time when they're needed more than ever. In addition to being my friend, Mayor Michael Bloomberg has been a trusted advisor and role model for me during my 6.5 years as mayor of the city and for many mayors across the United States of America. I don't think people have any idea how much he gives and gives and gives of his personal time when no one else is looking. His accomplishments as a 3-term mayor of New York following the devastation of 9/11 serve as a template for any leader of a major city in the 21st century. Mayor Bloomberg's business acumen, his work on climate change, his support of transportation mobility, his willingness to mentor young mayors like me, and his ability to tackle tough issues such as gun control without fear or ever backing down. As we all know, his philanthropy and personal generosity are legendary. A few years ago, the city of Atlanta received a grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies, quietly. It ultimately helped us improve our customer service operations and launch one of the most advanced 311 systems in America. The This cloud-based system allows our constituents to reach out easily by phone, through the web, or on a smartphone. It's enhanced our communications and government service, built public confidence, and streamlined efficiencies across multiple platforms in your hometown. Bloomberg Philanthropies also developed an approach called the Innovation Delivery Model that has helped us become one of the most efficient cities in using our resources to tackle the issue of homelessness. In the last 3 years, since we established what we call our continuum of care, we have decreased the unsheltered homeless population in the city of Atlanta by 50%. And the population of people living in shelters by 36%. These are individuals or families who are on the street and they're now in shelters. Those who were in shelters are now in the long-term housing. So back in November, we announced our final push to end chronic homelessness for our veterans. And by Veterans Day this year, 2016, we will announce that we have eliminated homelessness completely for veterans in the city of Atlanta. Simply put, the city of Atlanta could not have achieved this progress in its own regard without the help of Mayor Bloomberg and Bloomberg Philanthropies' data-driven approach to global challenges. Mayor Bloomberg's vision has not only enhanced the future of New York City, it is lifting up cities across the United States and around the world, and it is doing so in significant and profound ways every day. It is my high honor to be with you tonight, and because this man is a very special man, and you have given me the gift of being able to say thank you in a rare and unique moment. Thank you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Stuart Eisenstadt, a native Atlanta and a lifelong member of the Abba Synagogue, currently heads Covington and Burlington International Practice. He has practiced law more than 30 years in Atlanta and Washington. Ambassador Eisenstadt has held a number of key positions during his decades of government service. From 1977 to 1981, he was President Jimmy Carter's Chief Domestic Policy Advisor and Executive Director of the White House Domestic Policy Staff. In the Clinton administration, he was Deputy Treasury Secretary, Undersecretary of State for the Economic, Business, and Agricultural Affairs, and Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade, as well as Ambassador to the European Union from 1993 to 1998. He received the highest departmental awards for his service from Secretary of State Christopher, Secretary of State Albright, and Secretary of the Treasury Summers. Much of the recent interest in World War II issues and justice for Holocaust survivors and the memory of the Holocaust is as a result of his work. In 1978, he recommended to President Carter the creation of a Presidential Commission of Holocaust, chaired by Ava Brazell, which led directly to the development of the U.S. Holocaust Museum. During the Clinton administration, he served as Special Representative of the President and Secretary of State on Holocaust issues. In this capacity, he led 2 landmark U.S. reports on the role of Switzerland and other neutral countries during the war, and led negotiations that produced major agreements with the Swiss, German, Austrian, French, and Central European governments for bank accounts, slave and forced labor insurance policies, Nazi-looted art worth more than $8 billion to Holocaust victims and their families and other non-Jewish victims of Nazi prosecution. He published a book on these events, Imperfect Justice, Looted Assets, Slave Labor, and Unfinished Business of World War II in 2003, which has been translated into German, French, Czech, and Hebrew. He has also published a book, The Future of the Jews, How Global Forces Are Impacting the Jewish People, Israel, and its relationship with the United States in 2012. Ambassador Eisenstadt is now working on a book of comprehensive assessments with the Carter administration.
During the first term of the Obama administration, he served as a special advisor on Holocaust issues to the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, negotiating, among other things, the 47-nation terrorism declaration of looted assets and the $50 million agreement with the Lithuanian government. He is now a special advisor on Holocaust issues to the Secretary of State Kerry, and recently concluded a $60 million agreement with the French government by deports of the families on the French railway during World War II. In 2009, he led the negotiating team for the Jewish Claims Conference and has negotiated more than $1.5 billion in benefits with the German government, including for home care for needy survivors and a new child survivors program. He is co-chair of the Jewish People's Policy Institute, a Jerusalem-based think tank dealing with strategies facing Israel, the United States, Israel relations, and the diaspora, and of the Defiant Requiem Foundation. He has received 8 honorary doctorate degrees from universities and educational institutions, and some 75 awards and citations, including the Legion of Honor from France, and high civilian awards from Israel, Germany, and Austria. A chair in his name has been created in modern Jewish history and culture at his alma mater, the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. In 2009, Secretary of State Hillary Clinton appointed him to head the U.S. delegation to the Prague Holocaust Restitution Conference and as a special advisor on Holocaust issues in the Secretary of State. Ambassador Eisenstadt received his J.D. from Harvard University in 1967. He served as a law clerk for the Honorable Newell Edenfeld of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Georgia. Prior to entering law school, Mr. Eisenstadt earned an A.B. cum laude and Phi Beta Kappa in the political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He and his late wife, Frances Eisenstadt, have 2 sons and 8 grandchildren from Jade and Jessica and Brian and Harold.
Ambassador Eisenstadt.
Thank you, Senator Ann Davis. Mr. Mayor, CDC Director Tom Frieden, Rabbi Sandler, family, and friends. We've had many extraordinary speakers since 1987 when I started the Eisenstadt Family Memorial Lecture Series at the AA Synagogue to honor the memory of my father Leo, and then my Uncle Barry and Aunt Bessie, my mother Sylvia, and most recently my dear beloved wife Fran. That I can say without fear of exaggeration that of all of the speakers, none has made such remarkable contributions over so many diverse fields of endeavor as Michael Bloomberg. He is truly a man for all seasons. He grew up in Medford, a working-class suburb of Boston. He paid his way through Johns Hopkins University and Harvard Business School. Became a partner and head of the information technology section at the prestigious Wall Street firm of Solomon Brothers. And then when they were bought in 1981, as we'll discuss later, the new owners, to their loss and the world's gain, didn't share his vision of where he wanted some new products to go. And so in 1981, along with 3 of his colleagues, he started one of the great financial institutions of our time, a startup called Bloomberg LP, which literally has revolutionized the way in which data about securities and assets were stored and consumed. His initial innovation was the Bloomberg Professional Service Terminal, a path-breaking data analytics and information service commonly known as the Bloomberg. It's brought greater transparency to financial markets by providing investors and financial service industry more information upon which to value stocks, bonds, and other investments. He started literally from scratch. Within 10 years of its founding, there were 10,000 Bloomberg installations. In the next decade, 150,000. Today, 325,000. What started as a vision has grown into a global company that employs over 19,000 people in 192 locations in 72 countries. There's hardly a significant financial institution, including those in Atlanta, which does not have a Bloomberg. He broadened his horizons and his empire in 1990 when he created Bloomberg News. He started with a team of 6 journalists, and it's now the most widely read, respected business news service in the world, with 2,300 editors and reporters in 72 countries and 146 news bureaus worldwide. Bloomberg News is disseminated now through his own terminals, through Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Markets, Bloomberg mobile platforms, and through Bloomberg Business Week, which has a global circulation of 980,000 in 150 countries. Let me give you one anecdote that gives you a sense of this extraordinary man and his management and leadership style. I've seen it in the flesh. He does not have a fancy executive suite with people waiting on him hand and foot. He places his desk in an open bullpen in which dozens of aides and staff are seated together in a large chamber to promote accountability and accessibility. He decided to take his remarkable talents to serve the public good. Being elected as the mayor of a still traumatized New York City less than 2 months after 9/11. His leadership was indispensable in New York's regeneration from that catastrophe, faster than anyone could have possibly imagined. He set up a counterterrorism bureau which works with the New York Police Department, as we all call it, NYPD, and it is without question the single most sophisticated anti-terrorism unit in any city in the world. For the first time, he decided to place in the mayor's office the responsibility for education. The result of having Joel Klein as chancellor, a dear friend of mine, by the way, was smaller classroom sizes, more public charter schools, and a 40% increase in graduation rates. He appointed Ray Kelly, who headed the Customs Bureau when I was Deputy Treasury Secretary, as his police commissioner. I think, Michael, for all 12 years. And during that time, through creative, community-based policing, in 12 years, the crime rate in New York City decreased fully by 1/3. Fully by 1/3. Another initiative was public health. He put a major emphasis on healthy diets, smoking bans, and reduced calorie initiatives. The result was an increase in life expectancy over that 12-year period by 3 years for the average New Yorker. That's 2 years longer than the national average. And his first health commissioner, Tom Frieden, is here with us and is now director of Atlanta's own world-famous Centers for Disease Control. And Tom, we appreciate so much your work and being with us. Mayor Bloomberg also focused on climate change, and by the time he ended his 3-term tenure, he had reduced the carbon footprint of New York City by 20%. He used his entrepreneurial background to foster economic policies to support startups, small business, emerging industries like high-tech and bioscience, and led to the creation of a record number of jobs. The third leg of this remarkable career is his philanthropy. He is one of America's most generous philanthropists. His foundation, as the mayor gave you just an iceberg tip of, Bloomberg Philanthropies, works in more than 120 countries. 120 countries. Focusing on public health, education, the environment, arts, and government innovation, as the mayor so eloquently indicated. Michael has put his resources to great use for humanity in general, for medical science, and Israel in particular.